Olá, olá a todas e todos e todes. Muito boa tarde, boa noite, bom dia. A gente não sabe para quem a gente está falando, mas é um grande prazer estar aqui. Esse webinar is going to be a little bit in English, a little bit in Portuguese, a little bit in Spanish, e a gente decidiu fazer assim, pensando, né, que a gente está transitando por essas três línguas coloniais, que são o português, o inglês, o Spanish e o espanhol, e sempre, né, pensando que são línguas das quais a gente se apropriou. Então a gente vai falando, a gente vai usar as línguas com as quais a gente se sente mais confortável in a moment or in a different moment. So we're going to be moving between languages. E o público, né, the audience is also welcome to do the same. Então fiquem à vontade, né, para interagir com a gente no chat do YouTube. A gente também vai receber e a gente consegue se virar para entender perguntas em inglês, em espanhol e em português. Outras línguas talvez vocês tenham que explicar um pouquinho para a gente melhor. In one of these three colonial languages we're going to be mostly using today. So, eu vou começar falando um pouquinho, apresentar para vocês essa série de webinários que a gente começa hoje, né? Então, são webinários organizados pelo Programa de Pós-Graduação em Letras, aqui da Universidade Federal do Paraná, no Brasil. E esse programa, então, ele tem duas grandes áreas, que são as áreas de literatura e de linguística. Nós estamos na área de linguística, e dentro da área de linguística, numa linha de pesquisa que se chama Línguas, Culturas e Identidades. E aí, talvez por um pouco de falta de criatividade, a gente chamou essa série de webinars com o nome da linha de pesquisa, que é Conversations about Languages, Cultures and Identities. Então, a gente vai ter nesses webinars, a gente começa hoje, né, com a Class Observation in TEFL in Colômbia. Na semana que vem, a gente já tem o próximo webinar, que vai trabalhar com perspectivas educacionais zapatistas e de educação de mulheres do campo. E aí a gente tem, eu coloquei aqui na tela, né, o título em inglês para dar um reforço, mas essa vai ser em português, principalmente. Informações sobre esse webinar e os outros eventos desse mesmo webinar, né, vocês podem encontrar no canal do YouTube, num canal que se chama Pós-Graduação em Letras UFPR. Então é só vocês entrarem no YouTube, digitarem esse nome, Pós-Graduação em Letras UFPR, que está ali no balãozinho azul, né, que aí vocês, aqui está maiorzinho um pouco, né, vocês podem encontrar lá essas informações. A gente hoje, por questões técnicas, a gente está transmitindo no meu canal pessoal, né, do YouTube, mas a partir do próximo webinar a gente vai já passar a transmitir pelo canal da pós-graduação. E, então, esse webinar, como eu disse para vocês, né, ele é uma série de lives que a gente vai trabalhar até dezembro, né, então a nossa linha de pesquisa dentro do programa de pós-graduação em letras da Federal, está trabalhando com alguns temas, a nossa programação ainda não está fechada, mas here on screen you have some possible themes, some themes that are already confirmed, então essas lives já estão confirmadas, a gente ainda está decidindo o horário e dia bem exatos, mas basicamente é isso. Então a gente começa esses webinários da linha de pesquisa Linguagens, Culturas e Identidades hoje, e termina em dezembro, provavelmente meados de dezembro, com uma conversa entre todos os integrantes dessa linha de pesquisa, né, sobre o tipo de trabalho que a gente está desenvolvendo, né? Então, acho que estamos prontos para começar a falar um pouquinho sobre o nosso... Deixa eu ver aqui a minha cola, se eu esqueci de falar mais alguma coisa. Ah, sim. Hoje, aqui na nossa... no nosso primeiro webinário, né, a gente vai ter uma lista de presença. Então, durante a live, eu vou passar na tela para vocês o endereço do Google onde essa lista de presença se encontra. Então, vou pedir que vocês anotem isso, e aqueles que quiserem certificado, então, coloquem lá o seu nome para que a gente possa saber quem está participando e emitir os certificados, certo? Eu vou passando aos pouquinhos depois. Então, acho que estamos prontos, né? Era basicamente essas as informações em geral, né? E a gente vai começar, então, falando hoje sobre questões relacionadas ao ensino de inglês na Colômbia, né? Teaching English as a Foreign Language in Colombia. Para isso, a gente tem, então, 2 convidados, né? O apresentador, que é o Miguel Martínez. O Miguel faz doutorado na Colômbia e está fazendo o internship dele aqui com a gente no Brasil, remotamente. À distância, né? O plano inicial era que isso fosse presencial, mas por razões que todos conhecem, a gente está fazendo à distância. E para conversar com o Miguel sobre a pesquisa dele, temos o nosso colega da linha de pesquisa, o Eduardo Henrique Diniz de Figueiredo, a quem eu agradeço bastante por ter aceitado, né, essa conversa com o Miguel. Muito obrigada, Eduardo. Miguel, te agradeço bastante também. O Miguel tem me ensinado muito, não só sobre a Colômbia, mas sobre o fazer pesquisa, sobre a importância que é a gente estabelecer uma interação com a América Latina. So thank you very much for all this, Miguel. You've been a great opportunity in my life to get to know other people, other ways of doing research, of thinking about research, and thinking about the teaching of English in, say, Latin America, but especially in Colombia and in Brazil. Então, o Miguel vai fazer a apresentação dele e depois vai interagindo com vocês, e depois o Eduardo, então, faz as colocações dele também. Certo? Muito bem. Então, vamos ver. Deixa eu ver. Agora, vocês tenham paciência um pouquinho, que eu acho que vai dar certo. Aí, tá dando certo. Então, Miguel, we are all ears.
Okay, thank you very much, Clarissa. Could you please confirm if you are listening to me perfectly? Yes, can you listen to me? Yes, I think you can do.
Yes, it's working, Miguel. Yes? Thank you.
All right, okay, sorry. All right. Well, first of all, thanks, Clarissa, for this opportunity to share next to you, with you, and also Eduardo for this opportunity to understand our local knowledges here in South America. And well, a great responsibility that I have right now, because as far as I know, I opened this series of webinar, which is a great opportunity for everybody here in our field. And well, I try to do my best to open with the best situations, with the best presentation. Okay, so let's start with this short presentation, which involves many things about myself as a professional and also as a human, as a subject. And basically, the topic is the observer's subject positions and scene situations in the ELT classroom observations. ELT, the English language teaching. And if you notice the first slide, on the left part, There is ELT in education, which is my major in the PhD I'm now conducting in Colombia. So my name, as Clarissa said, is Miguel Martinez. I'm from Bogota, Colombia, South America. And well, this is a, topic that I'm researching now in my doctoral studies. Okay. I'm an EFL, English Foreign Language Colombian teacher. Also, I'm a PhD in education student, but I've been observed in my BA in teaching, also in the master, in teaching practicum. I mean, I've been observed during many times, and also I've been working as an observer. So it means the huge topic, or like the main aspect about this presentation, it's the classroom observation practices in the ELT field. So I'm going to try to be, so punctual about main aspects of the observation in the ELT field. How I see the observation? Well, I see the observation mainly as a mirror effect. What is that? I can see myself doing many things, but also when I see through a mirror, I can see some emotions, my own emotions. Maybe it involves the acceptance, maybe rejection. Sometimes I judge myself, but also I can see that I can improve, and I can see I am alive, right? So I see the classroom observation as a mirror effect, and probably many, some subjects here in our country or maybe worldwide, they don't see that. But for me, the observation is the mirror effect. But also, I see the observer position as weighting overalls. What is that? That this overall, sometimes I'm forced to wear this overall. Why? Because probably it doesn't fit me well. It is sometimes a little bit big, maybe it's short, maybe it's like small, and I don't feel comfortable with this overall. But the overall, at the same time, represents like security, represents like an identification, because this identification maybe represents like a frame. In that case, in the observer position, the frame could be like a colonial situation. Well, maybe I'm a little bit forward the presentation, but we're going to discuss in some minutes about this colonial situation. But the overall for me is a frame. It's like something that I need to wear. Okay, so also I would like to have a short reflection, about that, and I would like you think about these two statements. The first one, could you think about some reasons I have observed another teacher in my career? Think about reasons I have been observed in my professional career. So if you want to write on the chat, it would be great. And what are some reasons that you have observed another teacher in your career? Maybe there are some reasons that I have been observed in my professional career. How do you feel about some aspects related to? I don't know if probably Eduardo is looking at the chat, or maybe or let me see.
I am monitoring the chat here, waiting for answers.
Great.
So perhaps while we wait, we could, Eduardo and I could jump in and suggest some reasons why our own reasons for observing. I have been a teacher trainer for a good part of my life, so I have observed teachers in order to evaluate them, in order to give them feedback. And that has made me feel so uncomfortable every single time. I don't know if Eduardo would like to say Please. Something. And I have been observed for the same reasons. I mean, I once had collaborative experience with state school teachers, and they came to my classes at university as students, but I asked them to also observe me as a teacher, to help me, give me feedback. That was much more pleasant than the previous experiences.
I understand. Thank you, Clarissa.
Yeah, for me, it's similar, Clarissa. I think I have been observed more than I have observed others in my career. I worked at institutions where there was a lot of peer observations, and also, coordinators observed us too. But I've also observed students, and we also do observations as researchers too, right? So that's something that we want to consider as well. There is one personal experience that I want to share, but that'll be part of my comments to Miguel. So I'm not going to share it right now, right? Because I think it fits well with the topic of the presentation, and I'll leave it there. I'll leave it hanging there as a surprise for later on.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much for these contributions, and actually, they're very suitable in what we are finding right now in this presentation, because sometimes I have observed another teacher in order to, as Clarissa mentioned it, evaluate, in order to give feedback. And if you analyze here in our field, in the ELT field, also in teaching English as a foreign language, the observation is something like normal. It's something like it needs to happen. And also, I remember I said before, when I was in the university studying the BA, I have been observed many times. And also, when I'm doing research, one of the strategies, tools, the methodology is based on the observation. For that reason, I would like to show you some wonders about classroom observation. And I think the best way to show that is through an iceberg. This is the top part of the iceberg. People can see this part of the iceberg. And in the observations, people can see that the classroom observation is for recollecting information and evaluating a process. So it means it's a process where you need to get some data, and also this data should be evaluated, should be assessed. Also, the observation is to understand and to improve teaching. Eduardo mentioned it, a peer feedback, a peer observation is for improving also teaching, and it's the classroom observation that people see. There is a grand narrative. I mean, there is a movement about the observer, the body of the observer, like the observer as an expert, the observer with a high profile, with a high quality of knowledge, maybe with a vast of experience in language practicum or in teaching approaches, techniques, among other. Few people, or not all people, better, not all people can observe, or can be can observe, of course, but can be as an observer. Also, the observer should provide feedback. I already mentioned it. And finally, the observer handles rubrics to evaluate, to judge the process. The observer needs to have like guidelines, like forms, like putting a tick, putting a cross, evaluating a process, suggesting something. And this is some wonders about classroom observation and what people see, in this iceberg. Of course, if we see some things, we can't see some aspects. This is the part of the iceberg, the underneath part of the iceberg. There are some also underneath situations in classroom observations. About my empirical experience, and also from my own experience as an observer. And well, I'm working in an external institution as an observer, and I can identify some aspects which are not, which are like, ignored and seen for people. And the first one is that there is a misunderstanding of the observer's emotions, feelings. What is that? At the time of creating like a bilingualism or English plan, I mean, in the society, I mean, in the country, sometimes the emotions, the feelings, the self of the observers are not evidenced in the data. As an observer, I can see a class, I can observe a class, I can evaluate, giving feedback, among others, but how about my emotions? How about my feelings? They are not like registered. And maybe some people think like, well, come on, Miguel, but this is not important. I think it's important. It's important because there are too many situations in situ. I mean, at time of observing. And the observer has the opportunity to express those aspects, those emotions, and sometimes are not seen. The second one is that sometimes we think that the observer is a machine. The observer is, like a microscope, like a, like a specific machine, which is just looking at for a rubric, for a specific pattern. But I tell you that, the observer is not a machine, okay? We need to see more, further. We need to see right there into the observer's eyes. And finally, in this part, in this column, sometimes the subject positions of the observers are ignored. Ignored because I am also a teacher, but I play the role as the observer. But I'm also a student. There are so many subject positions, and the subject positions are in permanent movement. They are not static. They are not rigid. And those positions are like ignored. Those positions are like just taking for granted. And this is the situation. The another one, struggles when assessing, judging, rubric, guidelines. The observer has problems at time of evaluating, at time of judging, okay? This is not just to say it's easy to evaluate a classroom. No, sometimes the observer has struggles, at time of doing this exercise. Regulation of the authority while observing. What I mean with this part is that the observer sometimes doesn't want to feel like the power to be an observer, like a top-down exercise, a practice like that, not feeling like hierarchical. No, and the authority is also needs also to be problematized at the time of observing. And finally, some internal, intrinsic negotiations into the observer's subject positions, because I can observe a class, but the class for me is a wonderful class. It's a great class, but the rubric states I need to evaluate the step by step. I need to evaluate the rubric. I need to evaluate some imported methods, some like universal movement, which is for example, in our field, the PPP. I need to observe a presentation, a practice, and a production. So my negotiations as an observer, they are intrinsic, they are like here in my mind, but this teacher is doing a great job. But the great job can be, shown here in the rubric. There are some situations about the classroom observations I would like also to share with you, but I am finding a great question in this research, and the question is that what sorts of observer subject positions have been ignored by the canonical way to observe in the ELT field? If we analyze the question, there are some important aspects such as the subject position of the observers and also a canonical way to observe, because I've been working a lot with the classroom observations, too hard, and I'm fascinating because I found interesting ideas of the observer subject position that probably needs to be in the, in a document, in a text, in literature. And also there are some objectives of this research. The first one is to understand the observer's subject position orders in the ELT classroom observations, and the another is to identify observers' negotiations among their different subject positions to understand identities, okay? Good. I'm gonna be with you, with the participants here in the in this webinar. But before, I would like to show you a spread map about ELT classroom observations and observers practices worldwide. What is this map about? This is just like the lit review, the literature review I did for this research, and there are many people around the world talking about not only classroom observation, but the observer subject positions, and people from US, from North, from the West, in India, in Spain, in many countries, in China. But how about our lands? Of course, here in South America, also many people were exploring or have been exploring about the topic of classroom observation. In Chile, Arevalos, Leiva, here in Colombia, in Brazil, many people, and also in Uruguay, and I think there are many others. But well, this is like the map about the classroom observations, worldwide. After researching, I created like some antecedents, like like some roots of this research. And the first root I found pretty interesting is this: the supremacy of the observer subject position as an instrument to control and the effectiveness of an English class. Again, I am talking about Clarissa's words. She said the importance to control, like to evaluate, to give feedback. And the classroom observation also plays a relevant role in the control and the effectiveness of the class. For example, Wenrip, in 1992, she mentioned that the observer's training is used for potential teachers. Potential teachers means like a control, like something like it needs to happen. But also in Brazil, Bruns Costa and Cunha, allow me, please, my pronunciation, allow me to use this one, Cunha. The observer also uses different instruments, rubrics, techniques that help the individual teacher's abilities. So the first one, the first like, I would say like category, or probably like, like thinking, it's like potential teacher and instrument, rubrics, techniques for controlling and to have effectiveness in an English class. The second one is this: the prescriptive role of observers within a systematic processing of evaluation. Of course, evaluation. In Chile, there is a study which conducted the classroom observation as a piece of evidence to evaluate the performance of teachers. But not only in Chile. Here in Colombia, there is like a huge movement of assessment from our Ministerio de Educación, and which is the formative diagnostic assessment. And one of the requirements is the classroom observation to evaluate and guarantee the quality of the classes. So it means in the antecedents, I am finding like some items related to systematic process of evaluation, control, and effectiveness, which if we analyze, it probably could be like a system of power, like something to control, a mechanism of controlling something. And well, this is about the antecedents. After the antecedents, as I already mentioned it, this is the reflective time number 2. This is the time, well, to share our ideas, our knowledge. I don't want to have this webinar like so boring, just Miguel speaks, but I would like to express the 2 following questions, like wonders. And the first one is the classroom observation a discourse of modernity? Do you consider classroom observation as a canonical colonial practice? Sorry. Is it totalizing and violent, the classroom observation? Yes, no, why? And the second one is how power issues could be seen in classroom observations. I think we already talked to, we already, reflected upon, but I would like to, well, listen to you, to know about your position about the two questions. Eduardo, what do you think about the first question? Tricky? No, I think you have the chance to express something related to.
I think it is very tricky. I think it's, and I'm going to say this later, but I'll take the opportunity now that people are answering to say this now. I think not only is it very tricky, but I think it's a very interesting question that you're asking and that I have not seen being asked before. I have not seen anybody ask this kind of question before, because classroom observations are so, taken for granted, in whatever format they take place in. It's so much taken for granted that we sometimes forget to ask ourselves these questions. And it's tricky also because even in research, when we think of research and, the way that classroom observations can take place in research, I think those questions apply as well, right? I mean, who has the power to say what about whom? Those kinds of things matter. So I think your questions are great, Miguel, and I will say a little bit more
Miguel,
later.
there is a question. There is somebody that signs professor. It's difficult to read, but she's asking if there are any studies revising observers' subjectivities worldwide. Do you know of any studies of the sort?
Well, actually, it's a pretty nice comment, and the answer is no. I haven't found, and it could be great to start looking at this chance to know more about the subjectivity in the observers, and not just into the observers, but in the classroom observation. Because, well, if you see this presentation has like like movements of subjectivity, like some colors of subjectivity. Well, actually, I'm interested in subject positions, in the observer subject positions, but the subjectivity of the observer and the classroom observation practice also play for me a relevant role. And it could be great to have the chance to share ideas with other people who are interested in knowing, in learning, in sharing more about subjectivity, not just in this topic, in the ELT field. So if you allow me to answer the question, is no, but I wish I had the chance to know more on detail about it. Okay. I don't know if there is another comment. Maybe also Clarissa, if you have like some ideas, like some reflections about probably the second one, the power of issues, the issues of power here in the classroom observation. Okay.
Deus ex machina. Okay, now I'm back.
No problem.
But
okay.
yeah, it's just that I cannot have the questions, the comments, and the three of us on the screen. You see, so the comments cover Eduardo. That's why I was trying to juggle between different screens. Yeah, well, I think powers are issues of power are constitutive of human relations. Então, né, onde tem gente, tem issues of power. So, in class observation, these issues are even hierarchical issues, are even more institutionalized, and they're more visible. They're kind of sanctioned by the institution. That's why it's so terrifying, I think, to many of us, right? So as Maria is saying, it can be everything, depending on how we establish our relationship with the teachers and with the observers and with the institution, right?
Great. Yeah, and that's a pretty important point, because we as teachers don't like to be observed. I mean, I think few people, and the observer also represents like power, because this person sees what the teachers are doing, and the information qualifies if it is good or a bad practice. For that reason, I think the power issues are, as the participant also mentioned it, are important here, but it depends. It depends also how and maybe when or where specifically, because let me go a little bit further on subjectivity. The subjectivity in the sense of knowledge is produced from a particular body, in that case, well, from the observer, particular time, maybe in the observation, and in the particular space. It could be an educational context, right? So yes, for that reason, this is one of the reasons of the questions, because I would like to learn more about the comments and also from your opinions. Well, let me proceed about the theoretical framework. I'm not gonna take too much time on that. I just wanna name it. And well, the focus of this research is the positioning theory, the subject position in Foucault's words. It's like producing by the power of experts. Also, Clarissa mentioned it, not just subjects, teachers, or maybe practices have submitted to the colonial structure and accepted imported methods, imported language descriptions, and imported acquisition theories. And the subject position highlights people into hierarchies we were discussing before, like a hierarchical situation, not, not like a horizontal, and it happens also in the classroom observation. And finally, the third one I like a lot is the subject in decolonial thoughts. In decolonial thoughts, why? Because I would like to give like not a turn, but focus on the decolonial project. Why? Because some people think like the observer is a privileged one, and it's true. Maybe some people think like the observer doesn't have like the opportunity to know further a practice. Probably it's true, but also this subject should be, the position of this subject should be problematized, okay, somehow. And the another is the modernity. The modernity implies development, and the subject holds the superior position. This is in the colonial thoughts about the subject. Also, if we have the theoretical framework, we have some things about the colonial aspects. We've been discussing the power relations, and probably it could be a decoloniality of power. And in Quijano words, is that the legacy of an imposed practice or subject, the classroom observation practice, the role of the observer, the use of rubrics, parameters, guidelines, probably they represent power, and it is reproducing. It is validating by the society. The second one is the decoloniality of knowledge. Why? Because in the classroom observation, there is a need to have training and also professional development. It's a modern discourse, it's a modern myth, and it's a West discursive construction. And the last one is the preservation of the being. The preservation of the being. In ontological words, the subject position of the observers, the subject position is ignored, okay? The observer's subject positions, invisibility, and probably dehumanization into the other words, into the other situations. Well, finally, I have the methodology of the research. I honestly tell you that it's not easy to have other ways, other paths in methodology, especially in a decolonial movement. But I would like to have like a horizontal relationship. And I really like Basilacci's words, the ontological is before the epistemological. This is my team. This is the team. We are 4 guys, 14 mates who have the same training in observations, who also probably have mutual interests, similar observed classes, in bilingualism plans, same rubrics, but fortunately, we have been faced different contexts, some ontological dissimilarities, and we contrast in points of view, in thoughts, in reflections, in emotions. And this is what I like from this research, to identify these dissimilarities, these uncertainties, because as you know, the observation is, so normalized, probably it's a canonical practice. But how about, something different, something like uncertain that we can offer during the research? And to find these ways, I would like to ask you the last reflective time. And it is this. Reflective time number 3, and this is the last one, I promise. I think I have just 1 minute more, Clarissa.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yes, Clarissa. This is the last part I would like to share with you. It is about methodology in our research. How can I consider the effects of power relations between the researcher and participants, which are not equal? What can I do to present and analyzing data in a horizontal way? And and the last one, how will be the way to decolonize the methodology? So it is something like challenging, not well for many people, but I think there are important questions and important aspects that we need to reflect upon.
Yeah, while your audience is putting their thoughts together, how would you react to this? This is the comment I wanted to show. To the comment by that professor that says that in Colombia, most of the observers are men. Do you think it has anything to do with power relations and the chauvinist society we might live in all over Latin America? How would you react to this?
Oh, okay. To be honest, well, that's another great one. And yeah, with my tutor at the university, Universidad Distrital here in Bogota, we were discussing this point, this specific aspect, and I told her that when I was in training here to be observer, an expert observer, there were like 17 men and just 2 girls, just 2 women, and that's something to notice. That's something to emphasize. Fortunately, one of the teammates I have in this research, it's a girl, and well, Dianita also has a different view, not just because it's a girl, it's because she also realized that she was the only girl in the observation training, in the expertise observation training. And I think it is something related to the body, the power of the body. We mentioned it before. It's like something related to the coloniality, and probably is only one truth, one reality, and the reality and the truth is that the observer is a man. The observer is a boy, but the subject position for me also represents a constantly change, it is changing. For that reason, yeah, it's a challenge, and yes, it's true. Yeah.
I really like your question when your concern, in fact, trying to be more horizontal in our practices, not only in our daily life relations, but also in our research. A gente tem aqui no nosso grupo de pesquisa, eu e o Eduardo, a gente tem discutido muito isso, né, com os colegas e com os nossos orientandos, a questão da metodologia, how important it is to also, it's to walk the talk. So not only talking about decoloniality and establishing more horizontal relations, but also doing it in our research. And I think that one way to do that is to challenge the fixity of the academic genre, to, you know, kind of undermine it in its northernness, in its coloniality, and try to smuggle in some of our own styles of doing research and of thinking about the world. Basically, well, I'll have to have a look at the chat because it seems to be, you know, really exciting. So I'll let Eduardo go on and then project some of the comments in the chat here for us. Okay.
No, I agree with you, Clarissa, that first, Miguel, like the other questions you've posed so far, these are great questions. You know, these are very, and I guess what I think many of us expect is some answers from you, right? I guess from your research, right? Once you, because you're going into so much depth about this, I think more than provide you with some answers, I think we want to get some answers from your own research. But I do think that some of the comments that have been made on the chat make a lot of sense to me. Like, you know, try to establish a closer relationship between, you know, participant and observer, right? The observed and the observer, right? And try to establish, you know, continuous dialogue between these two parts, right? Also, not only having feedback go one way, you know, from observer to observed, but, you know, also feedback coming, you know, in both directions. So I think there are many things that I think are really important, but I'm curious to see what you will have to say to us when you finish the research. I really am.
Yeah, thank you, Eduardo. Yeah, I can see some. Wow, that's wonderful. By the way, this this webinar, because I can see like some reflections of the people here, of the participants, and yeah, well, the methodology. Let me tell you honestly, is not easy. It's not easy for me because, especially this topic is, you know, it's like a colonial topic. It could be also like a very normalized topic in our field, in the ILT. However, I would like to, well, I would like to tell you perhaps something important that is happening to me at the university, with Universidad Distrital. With the professors at the university, we did like a test of the methodology, you know, like a sample before interacting with the participants. And it's great because I found a strategy, if you allow me to use this word, the strategy, and it is with the teammate, sorry, with Wilson, with Diana, and with Alejo. I would like to show first my autobiography. Well, it's redundant to say autobiography, the autobiography, and I show them first. So I felt like very natural, and I wrote some comments, some aspects about classroom observation as a, you know, as a daily routine in my, you know, in a text I had, in some like autobiographical chapters. And then they realized that I wasn't extracting information, you know? It's not just like, give me information, give me information. That's an interview? Okay. How do you feel at time of observing? No. First, what I did, it was like interacting with them through with the autobiographical journal. And this is the first step. Then, naturally, spontaneously, they started telling me like aspects related to their positions with their subjectivities, and what I like the most, their emotions, their feelings. And I think with narratives, which is one of the, you know, ground idea here in the methodology, in the narratives, I can identify like something cultural. something like also chronological, and there are something like logical in the narratives, a logical connection. For example, one of them told me like, Miguel, but we need to observe teachers because they need to be evaluated. And I was, oh my God, really? Okay, I don't feel the same, but that's amazing because there are, as I said before, ontological dissimilarities, and we have like different points of view, and I like a lot these aspects. But yes, at the end, Eduardo, well, I'm starting right now with the methodology, researching more. And I would like to have like academic encounters, more than academic encounters, like social, like, like more human encounters with my teammates. Well, the participants, with my teammates and with the 3 people, and also me, because I am part of the study, Eduardo. I'm also, this is like a multifaceted process, which is also not easy because I've been observed, but I'm working as an observer. And, it's like a little bit tough.
And just to clarify, Miguel, I'm not asking you to answer these questions right now. I'm just saying that I'm curious to see what you will bring at the end of your research, right?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes, Eduardo. No, and also with the, I would like, I don't have, if I have the chance to thank the research group, Clarissa, with Eduardo, and with other mates. They are also generating too many different aspects and thinking in other ways. And it, of course, fits me a lot, the research, and not just the research, as a person, as a subject, as a, with my ontological position. Okay, Eduardo, I think time is over. I think I have 2 more minutes, and I would like to finish the presentation by showing you, by showing you like the vehicles, no, more than vehicles, is this, some methodological ideas, like some possibilities, methodological choices I would like to explore in the future, the observer's subject positions, an introspective reflection. When I said introspective reflection, is that I've been an observer, a teacher, a trainee, and it is working a multifaceted position. And probably I would like to have like a horizontal provocation and incitement. How first expose myself, with my teammates, and then at the end having like some vehicles, procedures. Probably it could be a qualitative, interpretative, and narrative, research. And as I said, a biographical, autobiographical study. And finally, with relatos, with dialogues and reflective journals, I would like to explore the stories of individual experiences. When I identify the canonical narratives, probably the canonical relatos, dialogues, I can do a decolonial analysis. But it could be great to identify like those thoughts, like those aspects. And well, I think this is all in my research, in this webinar. There are some comments of my teammates. There are some teammates insights. I just put it here on the slide, and you please feel free to reflect upon. There are comments of my teammates, and well, many ontological dissimilarities. But well, this is great because well, I would like to explore more on detail. That's all, Eduardo. Thank you very much for everybody. I really appreciate this time. Well, I don't know if we have like 4 or 5 minutes more, Clarissa, Eduardo.
Yes. Well, we have a lot of time to go on discussing if we want to, because we're scheduled to have an extra half hour then. So it would be nice to discuss some of the questions that were left behind for different reasons here. So there's one comment by Adriana here.
Oh, this is Adriana's comment. Investigadores de vanguardia. Y nos convertimos en investigadores de retaguardia. ¿Es así, cierto, Eduardo? Sí. Bien. I would like to switch a little bit in Spanish, if you allow me. Can I?
Por favor.
Oh,
Clarissa, I'm going to have 30 minutes after this. I don't know how long I have, Clarissa, just to clarify, so that I can select some of the questions and comments I have.
Yeah, I think Clarissa said 30 more minutes.
35, right? 35
yeah.
more minutes.
Hello. Yes, Eduardo, you can take as long as you wish. I mean, not as long as you wish, but you can take the other half hour, because we are already interacting with people on the chat, so we can just move on the way we're doing, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you want to say anything about this idea of pesquisadores de retaguarda, or you want to move on.
No, I mean, if that's up to Miguel, I think. But I mean, do you want me to, I don't know the format. I mean, do you want me to just jump in? Do you want me to, what do you want me to do?
I want you to start debating with Miguel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop sharing his slides and have us all in the screen, on the screen, and then yeah, let's go on, and I'll keep on monitoring the chat.
But
Yeah,
Miguel, please start with this comment by Adriana, please. Yeah, and then after you finish that, then I can make a few comments myself. Yeah.
Yes. De hecho, es una pregunta muy complicada, ¿no? Y más que buscar una respuesta, more than an answer, is to try to do this. Tratar de ser ese investigador de retaguardia, que es lo que le entiendo allí. My Portuguese is not portuñol, probably. It could be like better. Pero Adriana toca un punto muy importante, y es ese investigador que está en el contexto, está con la persona, para la persona y de la persona. Me parece importante nombrar a un gran profesor en la universidad. Harold lo toca, él lo dice en palabras tal vez de otra persona, pero lo sintetiza muy bien, lo organiza muy bien en su discurso, y es que debemos estar al tanto en el contexto que estamos, pero en investigación trabajar, working with, from, of the person next to us. Okay, I think this is really important. And well, with Boaventura, yeah, we need to keep closer about some important aspects of him. But yeah, this is what I would like to express: working from, with, and of the person who is, next to you. But Eduardo, please feel free to, to comment something related to.
Okay. So I have 30 then, right, Clarissa? Just to know, but I'll see if I can get some from the chat too. Okay.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll keep showing some of the comments on the screen, and you carry on. If you want to interact with them, feel free. If you don't, then just continue the way you
Great. Okay. Yo voy a empezar hablando un poquito de español, ¿está bien, Miguel? Solo un poquito, decir que muchas gracias a Clarisa y a Miguel por la invitación, por, por tu presentación, Miguel, y por esta oportunidad que tengo de aprender con ustedes aquí, porque estoy aprendiendo muchísimo aquí ahora, y con tus slides, con tu presentation, yo no sé cómo decir presentation en el español, entonces, pero muchas gracias. Presentación, imagino.
La presentación, sí.
Pero voy a cambiar para inglés porque es más fácil para mí. Mi español académico es muy malo, entonces vamos en inglés.
Pero tu español es muy bueno.
Vamos en inglés.
Yeah.
Mejor,
So, my Portuguese is a disaster. Cuando estoy en reunión con Clarisa, Eduardo y todos los compañeros de investigación en Brasil, me preguntan a veces, Miguel, well, let's switch in English. Let's switch in English. Miguel, do you follow us? Y yo, sí, bien. No, pero Eduardo,
pero empiezo
muy buen español.
Empiezo en español, Miguel, para aproximarnos un poco más. No nos conocemos personalmente y como es un evento multilingüe, como dijo Clarisa, entonces creo que es algo bueno para una aproximación, creo. But switching back to English now, right, which I'm much more comfortable in, and I think it's much better. Miguel, I have a few questions. I will start with two questions, right? And then I'll move on to a story that I said I was going to tell, and right? And I'll say why I think that story fits in together with your presentation. And then I have a few more questions. Is that okay? And I don't know if we'll have time for everything, but I'll try, and let me know, right? The first question I have, Miguel, and first of all, and I know I already said this, but I want to emphasize again that I'm very thankful for being here. I'm very thankful for the invitation to be a debater here, right? This is not my area of specialty, you know, I've never studied observations in as much depth as you are doing, Miguel, so it's very nice for me to learn from you, as I said, right? And even the topic of decoloniality is something that's also new to me. I started studying this last year with Identidades Leitura, right? Although I had some, you know, knowledge about it, but systematically studying it and having the opportunity to discuss it with different people is something that's new to me too, right? And that I have been discussing for about 1.5 years, 2 years now, and learning so much from the whole group, right? Including yourself, Miguel. So I'm learning here as well, right? My first question to you, and I think maybe you already answered that when you talked about a little bit about your autobiography, but is what led you to that topic? I think it's a great topic, like I said before. I think it's such an important topic. I think it's a question that I have not seen being asked before, but like I said, I haven't studied observations in as much depth as you're doing. But what led you in your trajectory, in your history, what led you to that specific question? Was it those encounters that you mentioned with your teammates? Was it what was it that made you think, okay, I want to study this in more depth?
Yeah, thank you, Eduardo. Thanks once again. Thanks, well, for the opportunity to share with you here. Yeah, the autobiographical study is something challenging also for me. With Pilar, with my my advisor here, I started like 2.5 years ago, and I started to design like some journals, but they were like, if you allow me to say, empirical, like, you know, like some textual. And I started writing about my experience as an observer, the practices, and also some like not regular situations in the observation, such as, first, I didn't feel comfortable at the time of observing in one school. The second one, some teachers told me that the observation wasn't helpful for them. Another one, some teachers didn't allow me to enter to the class, in order to observe. And all these, narratives were like presenting in chapters. And the first and second encounter with my teammates, with the participants in the methodology, was this, to show them these chapters. So immediately when they saw my autobiographical journals, they said like, come on, but I never thought in that. And it was a challenge, because I started, like digging more on their reflections, on their opinions, on their narratives. I didn't ask, and I haven't asked yet, they need to do, biographical things, biographical papers. Not yet, because they started telling me that they wanted to do. Okay, it was like, spontaneously, it was like unexpected. And they said like, yeah, well, Miguel, I would like to write something, like a piece of paper, if you allow me. And I said, of course, go ahead, let's do it. So basically in research, it could be probably a good data for analyzing, in the analysis, right? But yeah, Eduardo, the narratives, I think, also is the base of the autoethnography, but I don't know if I want to do an autoethnography right now, but the narrative is like the first step, like the first level of that. But yeah, the autobiographical journals I did, and I want to do more. It could be important for not just this research, but probably as an impact in the future. I don't know how, but I don't know now, but yes, it's like that.
So it started from you showing your own autobiographies to these people, and it seems to me like you're saying that it was very spontaneous, right? And these people said, hey, I would like to share my stories too, and then your research was emerged from that. That's really nice. One thing, Miguel, that I wanted ask, and I think there's a very interesting question here too. I'll try to leave that for later on the screen. But one question I want to ask you is, one thing in your presentation that was not clear to me, and I want you to say that you're looking at classroom observations from a teacher's or a teacher educator's perspective, right? So somebody who is a teacher educator observing classes. But in your last reflective slide, you also brought the role of the researcher, right? Which is something that we talked about here. Are you looking at this role of a researcher? Are you looking at your own role as a researcher? Are you looking at observation also from the standpoint of researchers? Is that something that you're doing? It's just a question that I would like you to clarify based on your presentation.
Oh, thank you, Eduardo. Yeah. That's a great comment, because probably it wasn't clear if I am paying attention more on the researcher, on the teachers observe, or probably of the observer. But yes, Eduardo, I'm focusing on the subject position of the observers, basically. But fortunately, during my research, there are many ways which are going to be immersed in this particular situation, which is the observer subject positions. For example, the researcher, because I'm also playing the role of the researcher, but I'm also a student who have been observed. So there are like, I think in the slide, it is multifaceted positions. And those multifaceted positions allow me to feed more the research. But to be honest, this research is just focused on the observers' subject positions. And the observers, Clarissa knows, the observers are looking at the teachers' practices. The teachers, not the pre-service, in-service teachers. And what kind of teachers? English teachers, teachers of English. Here in Colombia, there are some teachers who are teaching English language, and some observers are, looking at their practices. And what I'm interested is in this area, in this specific area. However, the other areas are important to be analyzed, are also immersed somehow the research. But I don't want to interrupt the research with other ones. But yeah, that's a very good comment, and thanks for that.
Okay, yeah, it's very nice that you say it's in-service teachers. I think that's because I think that fits well with my story. I'll tell the story now, since I said I would. But right after I finished my PhD, the first job that I had when I came back to Brazil was I was a professor at Instituto Federal de Educação, Ciência e Tecnologia de Santa Catarina, IFSC, right? Which is a Federal Institute of Education, Science, and Technology, right? Now, just to give you a little bit of background, Miguel, these institutions are very peculiar because we have from high school to undergraduate and graduate students in the same institution, and professors having to teach sometimes, students at different levels with different types of focus and with different objectives, and having to navigate this system. And what unites this is, these are technical and technological programs and courses, right? Now, I was an English teacher at IFSC in Florianopolis from 2013 to 2015. And what was interesting was in the second year, or maybe second semester there, a fellow professor, a colleague who was doing her PhD at Universidade Federal de Santa Catarina, asked to observe her colleagues, myself and two other colleagues, right? And she was trying to understand how we constructed our identities and how we constructed our teaching within the complexities of that institution, right? And it was very fascinating research. Of course, I said yes right away. I said, yes, I can be a participant in your research. You can observe me, right? That entailed, observing us, asking us questions. We were participants, right? And I know that many people on the chat mentioned that they were participants of research as well. But one thing, the reason I want to share this story is I felt during that time, I felt invaded. And I didn't say that to her. I said yes straight away. I said, I was very friendly. She's a friend of mine now. We built a very close friendship at the time. But at the time, I felt invaded. And it was not because of her. It was not her attitude. It was actually a very arrogant idea that I had. I have to admit that it was a very arrogant perspective that I had, because I felt I was the one who should do observing from now on, right? I had finished a PhD. I had become a professor. I should be always in the role of the researcher and not of the observed, right? And that arrogance is something that I don't think I ever admitted to her, actually, even though we became close friends, right? But it's something that your presentation made me go back to that story. It made me think, and the reason why your presentation made me go back to that story is when you say observation has a lot to do with positionality, with power, with hierarchy, with coloniality, it makes total sense to me from a personal level, right? Not only because I was observed as a teacher, as a young teacher when I was beginning, but from that story when I was being observed as somebody who was supposedly experienced, but we know we're always unfinished people, right? We're always learning, right? So that was really important for me. And seeing your research and seeing your slides last night, you sent the slides beforehand, right? Made me reflect a lot about that, how arrogant of me to have thought that, at least I think it was arrogant of me, but it was, even though I'm saying arrogant, it was also like, I think it's natural that you feel, oh, somebody's going to observe me. What now? What, as you said yourself, right? And I think that when you ask the question in your reflections, is it colonial? Is the observation a colonial pursuit? I don't know if it is colonial, but I certainly felt invaded, right? And invasion is a word that has to do with coloniality, that has to do with, I don't think I felt colonized at all. On the contrary, she talked to me about, her observations all the time. We built the knowledge that she eventually wrote in her PhD dissertation together. I think I was a co-participant in the things that she ended up writing. she member checked, so she had me read that, which was really nice. But at this idea of invasion, perhaps, is something that, if you think semantically, has a lot to do with this idea of the colonial, right? So it was really curious. Now, one thing that, okay, go ahead, say something.
No, Eduardo. No, I'm sorry, Eduardo. Finish the question.
The questions were really good, and that's why I said I think it would be great for you to bring some answers to us when you finish. And then one thing I was reflecting upon, and upon that time too, and thinking about your slides and the questions you asked the audiences, I think one thing that, I don't know if she did that, but I think one thing that we can perhaps decolonize or make it more horizontal, like you said, is perhaps in the observation of people like in-service teachers, where I feel in-service teachers, who are the people you're observing, a lot of times they are experienced, right? They already have, like I felt at that time, right? Oh, wait a minute, I'm an experienced teacher. I've gone through this observation phase. Doesn't make sense anymore. I felt maybe in-service teachers feel the same way, right? So maybe one way of creating this horizontal way of doing things is starting to ask these people, okay, what would you like me to observe, right? What would you like me, negotiating guidelines or, whatever it is for the observation with the people who are being observed, right? I think that makes things more horizontal, not only going there and negotiating after the fact, in the feedback sessions, but negotiating before the fact, or before the observation actually takes place, negotiating what can happen and what would you like me to observe and how, what kind of feedback would you like from me? I know you're an experienced teacher and perhaps you even have more experience than I do. What kinds of things would you like me to look at? I think negotiating these roles from the beginning, from the get-go, I think is something that is that might be very important. And again, I've only thought about this because of your presentation. So this is a compliment, actually, in the reflection that brought to me, and that I hope that what I'm saying here might make sense to you when you write about this or when you reflect a little bit more about this. In fact, just to compliment, and I know I'm talking too much, I want to give you more time to talk, but just to compliment a little bit, there's a text by Alistair Pennycook where he's reflecting on the practicum, right? He's reflecting on observing, this practicum situation. And there's a question he asked. I was revisiting that text yesterday. It's actually here. It's in this book here, right? But I was revisiting that text, and he asks the question. He says, what if when I go there, the things that I point out to my student that I think she didn't do well are exactly the things that she was taught to do, right? So, negotiating these things, that made me think about this a lot too. Negotiating this is really important. And if you can say something about that, I would be very grateful.
No, thanks to you, Eduardo. And well, something it keeps in mind and it comes to my mind is that the word negotiating, I mean, maybe with the teacher before observation. How about the negotiations of the observers? I mean, their own negotiations. Because, well, when I am observing a class, before I talk to the teacher, but sometimes even the observation is not important. I mean, the practice of observing the teacher is not important. And it could be one of the strategies of subversion. You remember, Clarissa, before yesterday, we were talking with Linguario about it. And some strategies of subversion could be like, don't follow the form, don't follow the rubric. Well, it could be one technique, but of course, I don't offer like a recipe of this is the good manual of the observer, of the decolonial observer. Of course not. But I think it is pretty much what I think about the decolonial project, because with a decolonial project, I identify the coloniality, the observation as as a mechanism of control of power. Then I can interrogate, I can ask about that. And finally, I interrupt this coloniality. For example, I would like to interrupt the observation coloniality, the observation canonical practices. The point is how. And this research is, I'm working on that because I'm so new with the decolonial project, and with my teacher, with my teachers at the doctoral here, we've been exploring like orders, other aspects to do something different. But Eduardo, I think we need, or at least in this research, I need to find some strategies of subversion, and with those strategies, at the end, probably I could offer a different point of view of the one truth of the, one wide aspect of the observation. Because to be honest, the classroom observation rubrics are the same, are done in the in the north, in the west, but this is not a problem, and they are validated by the society. However, there are other practices to do observation. And how about the positions of the observers? Okay, and well, thank you again to make me reflect upon that. And finally, I would like to say this, and I wrote here, Eduardo, my knowledge as observer has been changed a lot. And that's not normal, because with some teammates, one of them, he told me that he is the same, even if he observes classes or not. And I think I'm not like that, but that's amazing. That's beautiful, because this is more appealing about what I would like to find in the future. Okay. Well, this is what I would like to express. And in terms of the coloniality, in terms of the decolonial project, this project has been affected me a lot. It hurts. It's not easy, but it's a challenge as well. There are many things to learn from that, and with the community, and this is like, you have like something in classroom observation and would like to transform into the colonial. I think this is not the purpose. I think the purpose is to find, like, as I said, and I repeat again, excuse me to repeat too many times, to think, not to think, to act out, and to research different, with some uncertainties, with some ruptures, with some not linear. And this is, also the project about subjectivity, which is in permanent movement. It's not static. And this is what I would like to find in this research, Eduardo.
No, thank you, Miguel. Thank you for your reply. Very, very nice, very insightful. I have two other things, and then I want to give time for this question that keeps popping up. So I think it's very nice. It's a very important question, right? But two very fast things because of the time, Miguel. But the first thing is, I really like your research question. I really like the main research question you asked. If you could share your screen again and show us the research question again, right? Where I think it's one of your first slides, and I can open it here too so that I can remember it as well. But if you can open that for us, that slide there, right? What sort of observer-subject positions have been ignored by the canonical way to observe in ELT fields? I really like this question. I think it's an excellent question. I think you have a very open question, and a question that, there's going to be a lot for you to investigate, and for you to. I would just suggest, and you don't have to accept my suggestion, that you incorporate in that question as well, even though I already think you're already doing this, but I think it would be nice for you to incorporate into the question as well, what sort of observer subject positions have been highlighted by the canonical way to observe in the ELT field? Because some things are being ignored, but they're being ignored because other things are being highlighted. Other things are being, are being given a lot of focus. So what are those things, right? And I think that's, like I said, I think you will do this naturally anyway. I think maybe you don't need that in the question, but I think bringing that to the question might, make you focus a little bit more on that, or at least try to answer that more specifically. And if you and Professor Pilar and Professor Clarissa, it's Pilar, right? Your advisor's name in Colombia, right? Yeah. Professor Pilar and Professor Clarissa, if you want to do this, right, when you are writing, I think that's very nice for you to think about, just adding that word there, right? The last comment I want to make, and it's a simple, and it's about something that you just said, and maybe you will disagree with me, Miguel, and I would like to know what your thoughts are on this, and Clarissa's as well, if she wants to jump in. I don't think that, and this is Eduardo, but again, this is part of my process of learning and studying decolonization and now learn about your project. I don't think that training, as you said, or that a rubric, or that these things are necessarily bad, or that they're necessarily colonial. I think the important thing is for us to negotiate those things, for the others to have room to discuss those things with us, to deconstruct those things with us, for us, even as researchers, if we use something that's an instrument, for us to have the chance of participants, challenging us and challenging our perspectives on things. So I think, I don't see an instrument, and I'm calling it an instrument. I know it's very positivistic, but in any way, I don't think something is necessarily bad. I think it depends on the attitude that we have towards it, and deconstructing it, and finding breaches and gaps to change it, and negotiating these things with those who are being observed by us, right? So it's just a thought. And if you want to comment on this or on the research question, it's very nice. And then I want to get to that question that was asked previously, right?
I'm almost picking up on that question, Eduardo.
No, I will get to that. This is my last comment, my last question, then we'll move to that.
It's okay, Eduardo. And yes, of course, we're going to talk about the question. Ignore, because maybe the positions of the observers probably are ignored. But as you said, of course, they are not highlighted, and probably it could be a good opportunity to to show something more related to. And the another one, it's like, in terms of if I understand, the instruments, the rubrics, no, they are not bad, of course. What's the point, Eduardo? When the observer gets the training to be an observer, an expert observer, the rubrics are not the problem, not even the guidelines. The problem is like how can I say that? Like the system, like the technology, which imposes us to just continue this specific pattern. But no, of course, the rubric has like important features and great highlights. And actually, I really like some of them, and I have many. And I can get this with my students at the university. And even with the observers, we can have like, oh, how about this part is great on the rubric? Yeah, take it. But the point is that this technology, like this the hierarchical position of the of something normalized, canonical, don't give me the chance to do something, let's say, better or worse or something different. Probably is that. I don't know if I answer your question, Eduardo.
Or not only answered, but I think you answered very well. Because like the way you say it is, the rubric and the way it's imposed itself creates hierarchies, right? That's what you're saying, right? That the rubric itself and the way it is imposed creates positionality, creates hierarchies. And that I think is the bad thing, right? Not the rubric itself, but what it creates if we don't, if we're not open to challenge it, or if others are not open to challenge it. I think your answer was very good. Yeah, I really liked it. Clarissa, can you bring back that question?
I think you're kind of answering, not directly, but you're commenting on the questions, even if you're unaware of that. So that's why I've been projecting many times repeatedly the same question, porque às vezes o que vocês estão falando está conversando com as perguntas, né, de uma maneira um pouco mais indireta. Então, por isso que eu fiquei repetindo algumas, porque eu acho que vocês já falaram sobre isso, né? Então, daquela pergunta que eu fiquei repetindo muito, vocês já comentaram de uma certa maneira, que era a questão né, do impacto que os estudos de decolonialidade tiveram no trabalho de vocês, né? Eu acho que vocês falaram sobre isso, né? O Miguel se colocou na posição de pesquisador, né? Como isso mudou a percepção, né, dele, tanto como observador no trabalho, mas também, pelo que eu entendi, né, também na prática de pesquisador, né? Como é que ele lidou com isso? Perguntaram também uma outra pergunta, a pergunta da Ingrid, né? Como é que se cria um ambiente mais confortável para favorecer esse processo? Vocês falaram sobre isso também, né? O Miguel começou dizendo, eu me exponho também, né? Eu também me permito observar, ser observado. O Eduardo falou a mesma coisa, né? Sobre aquela pesquisa. Então, eu acho que vocês foram respondendo essas perguntas, né? Aí eu acho que a gente já está no final, já está no último minuto, né? Então eu vou tomar a liberdade de encerrar essa conversa por enquanto, né? Não sem antes dar a palavra para vocês, claro, né? Mas eu acho que a gente precisa encerrar, né? E aí, assim, antes de passar a palavra para vocês, eu quero agradecer imensamente, acho que foram reflexões muito importantes, né? Quero avisar as pessoas que esse vídeo fica gravado, ele vai ficar disponibilizado no site, no canal, né, do Programa de Pós-Graduação em Letras. Então, vocês podem procurar no YouTube, é só vocês clicarem, deixa eu colocar aqui, é só vocês digitarem Programa de Pós-Graduação em Letras UFPR, assim. Cadê? Não aparece agora, peraí. Aqui, pronto. É só vocês digitarem esta longuíssima frase no canal, no YouTube, e vocês vão ter o link para o canal da pós-graduação, onde esse vídeo vai ficar disponibilizado, assim como todos os próximos vídeos desse webinário. Tá cheio de comentários aqui positivos, né, agradecendo a vocês. Então eu também vou fazer um eco com esses comentários e dizer que foi muito interessante, mesmo as reflexões, muita coisa para a gente pensar, né, muita coisa para revisitar, e eu acho que essas frustrações, né, quando a gente se pega imerso na colonialidade, quando a gente se percebe, né, constituído pela colonialidade, é duro, né? O Eduardo falou sobre isso, o Miguel também, né? É uma coisa difícil, mas vejam, faz parte da gente, né? Faz parte da nossa identidade. Para o bem ou para o mal, muito mais para o mal, talvez, essa colonialidade que nos constitui faz da gente quem a gente é, né? Então, no fundo, ela também nos permite fazer essas reflexões que a gente está fazendo hoje. Então, eu acho que é mais ou menos por aí, né? É pensar no que o Miguel comentou, né? De tornar visível essa colonialidade, né? Na gente e nos outros. E eu acho que eu vou pular a segunda etapa, tá, Miguel? Eu vou para a terceira, e interromper essa colonialidade. Então, no momento em que a gente se conscientiza, a gente pode tentar, pelo menos, né, interromper esse processo. Então, gente, muitíssimo obrigada a vocês pela participação maravilhosa, e vamos ficar acompanhando o Miguel, né, aguardando ansiosamente os resultados dessa pesquisa. Então, fiquem à vontade, the floor is yours again.
Miguel, eu quero deixar a última palavra para você, pode ser? já que você é the star of the show, né?
No, come on.
Mas então eu vou falar rapidinho e aí eu passo a palavra para você.
Eduardo, sigue.
Eu falo rapidinho e aí você fala por
sigue,
último.
por favor, não hay problema.
Só dizer outra vez, muitas graças a vocês, muitas graças por todo, e dizer que eu fiquei muito feliz de estar aqui, de aprender muito. Miguel, parabéns pela sua pesquisa, eu estou muito feliz, parabéns, acho que você entende, né? Felicitações, né? Congratulations, né, pela sua pesquisa, né? Eu fico muito feliz e fico muito feliz de poder fazer essa interlocução. Parabéns mesmo, eu estou curioso de verdade de ver as contribuições. Clarissa e Miguel, muito obrigado de novo pelo convite, fico muito feliz e dizer que para mim é um prazer estar aqui com vocês, maravilhoso. Obrigado mesmo, obrigado.
Muito obrigado. Mi portugués terrible, mi portugués.
Tá ótimo, Miguel, tá ótimo.
Les quiero agradecer de nuevo. Yo creo que no estoy seguro que estos espacios donde podamos conversar, donde podamos aprender de esas reflexiones son importantes para nuestro campo y particularmente para nuestras vidas. Quiero cerrar con algo muy corto que me ha pasado en estos últimos, honestamente, 3 años, que he estado estudiando el doctorado. Me he dado cuenta que esto lo nutre a uno, esto feed me every day, right? This is not just like every 2 months or every time I'm looking at information about the coloniality or classroom observation. No, it's all the time. Y me cambia no solo como académico, como investigador, sino como persona, como una gran persona. Y creo que uno debe ser muy coherent with our own speech. I mean, we need to be like, I don't know, better people in the future with the academic purpose. And well, there is not a recipe. There is not like one truth of a good observation. But what I really recommend to all my friends and, the community, maybe the ELT, is that there are other ways. There are like other paths to observe a class. And maybe this is the conclusion of this webinar, the first one. There is something ignored. There is something unseen. And probably there is not in a text. Probably it is not in this research, but it is in our being, in our self. And well, thanks again, Clarissa, Eduardo. Thank you very much, and we'll keep in touch. And of course, please, for everybody, keep in touch with these webinars. They're going to be fantastic, and I'm gonna learn a lot from that. Thank you.
Muitíssimo obrigada, então, a todo mundo. Obrigado ao nosso público que interagiu, né? Respondeu aos nossos apelos e interagiu bastante com a gente. Agradeço a todos que estiveram aqui, todas, todes, todos. A gente está aqui nessa discussão do que fazer, né? Se a língua é machista ou se as pessoas são machistas ou se as línguas e as pessoas podem ser machistas. Então, obrigada mesmo a todo mundo. Esperamos rever todo mundo também nos próximos webinários. Assim que a gente fechar a programação, a gente vai divulgar nas redes sociais, né, nós individualmente, mas também no Facebook do Programa de Pós-Graduação em Letras, na página do programa, né, e no próprio canal do YouTube. Então, muitíssimo obrigada a todas, todos e todes. Tenham um ótimo final de semana. E antes de acabar, eu quero dizer o seguinte: a gente está aqui falando, ficou aqui falando nessa última hora e meia, como se tudo estivesse normal, mas a gente sabe que não está nada normal, que nós estamos passando por um momento extremamente difícil, planetário, né? No Brasil e na Colômbia, nós temos tido muitas mortes que talvez pudessem ser evitadas por políticas públicas mais efetivas. Então eu acho importante que a gente lembre disso, né, e que a gente, como diz o Baba, né, o home baba, a gente não pode esquecer que esqueceu, a gente esquece às vezes para poder lidar com tudo isso, né, para poder sobreviver, para poder respirar, mas a gente não pode jamais esquecer que a gente está promovendo esses esquecimentos estrategicamente, a gente precisa lembrar dessas coisas, precisa aprender com essas experiências, né. Então, beijo grande para todos, até breve, gente, muito, muito, muito obrigada, tchau.